Right. Well, thanks for everyone coming here. Good afternoon. And the name of the panel today is very fitting because we are now disrupting the flow of between you guys and the St. Patrick's Day celebrations. And we are here before leprechauns come out. So just sit tight and enjoy the last panel of the day today. This year we're a little different than the last year, very different actually. Last year we had more focus on the Silicon Valley venture-backed companies kind of focus, and this year we are more of a mid-tier, mostly publicly owned companies here that are trying to disrupt the primes and go up in the food chain. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion today, and many thanks to Jim McAleese for assembling this wonderful group of people and this great day and panels. So I think we all want to talk about how we stand in today's environment from this so-called mid-tier perspective that is very unique, very rare actually, because industrial base is totally turned upside down a little bit in the past few decades, if you will. So I'll start with the introductions, and I will let our guests here to introduce themselves and talk about why they think they are disruptors, especially in the question around the central question of, how do we change the system? What do you do differently, better than other ones? Why do you think that we are disruptors? But start with the introductions first, and Ms. Eric, we can start with you and go down, end up at the mic at the end.
Great, thanks, Fatih. I'm Eric DeMarco. I'm the CEO of Kratos Defense. We're a hardware systems and software company. Primary focus areas are hypersonic systems, unmanned jet drones, turbojets and turbofans for jet drones, loitering munitions and cruise missiles, and space and satellite communications. And key differentiator for us is we try to identify areas of need for the warfighter and the Department of War, make the investment up front, and be first to market.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
My name's Tom Bell. I'm the CEO of Leidos. To talk about what makes us disruptive, I think it's important to maybe talk about some of the characteristics that being disruptive doesn't have to be. So for instance, I don't think being disruptive means you have to wear a big watch or wear exotic clothes or maybe be good at spending other people's money at trade booths and a lot of hype. Being disruptive is being about passionate, being agile, and being mission-focused with our customers. And it's those things that I think set Leidos apart in terms of our passion for unparalleled customer understanding and making sure that we bring the agility and the founder's mindset that is Leidos into all the missions that we serve. And so while we go into a room with customers, we're very focused on sobriety and ensuring that they understand we understand, and that we're going to be not only disruptive today, but we're going to be a company that's there tomorrow. They can count on us, just like they've counted on us for 55 years, to be here for the next 55 years. We're not a flash in the pan. So very excited to be here as a part of this disruptive panel. And with that, Wahid, over to you.
Thank you, Tom. I just echo what Tom said. My name is Wahid Nawabi. I'm the chairman and CEO of AV, AeroVironment. We've been around for 50 plus years, as Tom said. For us, we never actually focused on disrupting like a competitor. For us, the competitive nature has really never been a real focus. We want to compete. We welcome competition, and we've always competed. But the ecosystem has to really be at the best shape in order for our customers to be able to be successful in their missions, as Tom said. Pretty much, we're actually partnered with almost every company here in some way, shape, or form. And we're probably going to talk about some of those things here. But for us, the DNA of the company is all going after problems that our customers have that we can solve better than before. 30 years ago, the U.S. military did not know how to use small drones. We were the first ones who came out with, hand-launched drones. And there's some people in the audience, some generals that I know, who can attest to that. And we, came up with that. And then 10 years later, we said, okay, we could see the bad guys. We need something to defeat the bad guys. And the loitering munition and Switchblade was born. Last few years, we focused on RF counter UAS, how to counter drones. The Titan family, which is the most, And then lately, as you saw lately in the news, our Locust directed energy system. We truly have built this company from the beginning with one mission in mind, which is the conflicts of the future is going to require all these systems to talk to each other. There'll be more unmanned than manned systems, in the different domains. They have to be all domain. The platforms have to be connected, and they've got to be able to talk to other platforms. And in a very simple form is also that AI and autonomy and computer vision has to play a much bigger role. So we've been investing in that particular thesis for the last 16 years that I've been with the firm. And I think I know we're going to continue doing that. For us, what makes the secret sauce is our R&D spend as a percentage of revenue. This year, we're going to spend 12 to 13% of our revenue. We've gone as high as 18% of our revenue. For a $2 billion company, that's $250 million a year if you add the sustaining engineering involved. It is by far the number one competitive advantage for us is actually people, believe it or not. And I don't mean that we just bring the brightest and best. Everybody claims that. There's no monopoly in the world for the best and brightest. Anybody can hire those best and brightest. But it's actually given them the environment and the tools to be able to actually innovate and to make mistakes, go fast, learn from their mistakes, don't feel like they're going to be punished for taking risk. I always say this, you can make the mistake once and be proud of it, actually, because that's how humans will learn. Making it the same mistake twice, obviously not good, but learning from your mistakes is really good. This whole thing about defense tech prime, the next gen, I think there's companies here that we've lived it for the last decade or two. It's nothing unique or surprisingly a new phenomenon. It's been around. We've done it. We know how to do that. And lastly, I would say is that what really sets us apart is our ability to transition from prototype to real production. That's something that I believe a lot of companies here, if not all, knows how to do. We've done that a few dozen times in our history. Last year, in the last 12 months, we launched 4 brand new platforms, products, and all of them are in production. We're making them now in full rate production, and the time from concept to that is about 2.5, 3 years. I think people talk about 6 months or 9 months. Many of us are engineers here, and I have a very, very genuine passion and respect for engineering. Things like this doesn't happen that quickly. It does not happen. So if anybody claims that, it's probably not telling you the whole truth, or they don't know the truth. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Jim, congratulations on another great conference. Thanks for having this panel and having me here. So my name is Mike Coulter. I'm the president and CEO of Hanwha Defense USA. Joined since December. Prior to that, the past couple of years, I've been CEO of Hanwha Aerospace in Korea. But I tell you that to say Hanwha is shifting very quickly, leading aerospace and defense in Korea, $60 billion conglomerate, by the way. We have vineyards in Napa, and I learn more about the conglomerate every single day, but the aerospace and defense business is about a third of that. The way to think about Hanwha as a company is the leading aerospace and defense company in a market that has been on a war footing for 70 years. So when you think about a Korean government that has had a nasty neighbor on its northern border, and has had a shrinking workforce to try to meet those needs. They have had to invest in ways, and the defense companies have had to invest in ways to incredibly efficient, incredibly competitive, and be able to deliver for a customer that's in need of potentially going to combat tonight. In parallel to that, we are a shipbuilder. We're competing on the shipbuilding side with very heavily subsidized Chinese shipyards. So again, we have had to get incredibly efficient, incredibly effective. So I've spent the vast majority of my life in aerospace and defense companies in the United States and in Europe. And I'm floored by the scale of the technology, automation, efficiency that we have at Hanwha, which is the reason I joined Hanwha, to help us on this global journey. So that is the who we are. The why we are disruptive is Hanwha is set on becoming a leading global aerospace and defense company, and to do that by becoming multi-domestic. And we are moving out at Hanwha speed and urgency to do that. You may be familiar that we have built factories in Australia to deliver Australian-made, Australian-built howitzers and infantry fighting vehicles. We have factories in Poland, Romania, delivering artillery and munitions to everybody on the eastern flank of Europe dealing with the Russian threat, and very proud through our partnerships in Poland delivering equipment into the fight in Ukraine. We, in the Middle East, delivered missiles and self-defense MSAM system that many of you seen in the press this week, defending our Emirati partners from incoming threats in the region. So as part of the pivot to the United States, we are intent on becoming American, just as we have in other places. We acquired Philly Shipyard about a year ago. We are intent on bringing the technology, efficiency, automation from our shipyards in Korea to Philly, and regrowing what was a once mecca of shipbuilding in the United States. 12 months in, we've gone from 500 shipbuilders to 2,000. So very proud of the efforts to grow an American workforce. We announced recently that we have acquired 20% of Austal and are working with Austal and the team in Mobile, Alabama to deliver similar capacity in shipbuilding in Mobile. But then our heritage as a company, what started in the munitions business, and we are very aware of the munitions challenges. We view ourselves as one of the most efficient shipbuilders in the world, one of the most efficient munitions builders in the world, and are intent on bringing that capability to the United States, and recently announced a munitions campus in Arkansas, and some other plans. So I think the why we are disruptive is potentially the way that we are operating, but when to the point that was made here, we don't see this as disruptive in a destructive way, right? So there are areas where we believe we as a company can improve through partnerships with leading companies in the United States. We have to get more efficient at shipbuilding in Korea to compete with China, and we are exploring relationships with different cutting-edge technologies in the United States to bring that back to improve ourselves there. We have a partnership with General Atomics on developing a new Navy UAV for Korea and for the United States. We're working with disruptive companies trying to constructively disrupt the market. Havoc, many of you seen on USVs, Vatten on UUVs. So how do we create the capacity, taking an industry and a company that's been on wartime footing and a customer in the United States that wants industry to be on a wartime footing to support the warfighter and constructively disrupt the market. So, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mike Shortsleeve. I'm the Vice President for Strategic Development for General Atomics Aeronautical Systems. And I want to emphasize that because many people associate General Atomics with the MQ-9 or the MQ-1, and people think that's all we do. But the reality is, General Atomics is a technology company across the board. We build satellites, we do munitions, we do nuclear fission and fusion. In addition to the unmanned systems, it's also sensors. It's a wide variety of things that the company actually does and brings to the warfighter. We're privately held, we're laser focused on what the warfighter needs, and we're relentlessly agile. And two things that I think really separate us from the way we do business in many cases, and you hear a lot of it here, I think you're going to see a theme in this, is the first thing is that we have the freedom to explore. We have Mr. Neil Blue as our owner, and the scorecard for us isn't necessarily how much money we're bringing in. We are a business, that's important, but the scorecard is what are we delivering? What are we able to get into the field, and does it do what it needs to do? That's the scorecard that we're rated on from him. In addition to that, we pour a lot of money right back into the company. 35% of the revenue goes right back in. And that's a pretty considerable amount when you think about research and development. That also goes to capital assets to do, upgrade your manufacturing, whatever it may be. And the company has been very much doing this for years to sort of set the tone for ourselves, but to be ready and move fast when we're asked to. So when we talk about some of the technologies that are out there, the reason we can invest in those is because we want to have that edge to be able to produce things quicker. Because it goes back to what I was saying the scorecard is, which is delivering. That's the scorecard for us. And so you look at things today, additive manufacturing, people are doing 3D printing. That's a big thing coming. General Atomics has been doing that for 12 years. We invested in that a long time ago, and we've got thousands of parts that are on aircraft today that are flying. But that's the mentality and the culture within the company. Company history goes back into the 50s when it was General Atomics under General Dynamics, and it was the nuclear mission set. That still exists today under our GA Energy. And then you look at the Electromagnetic Systems company, our sister company, is also another defense company. They build the carrier launch and recovery systems. They're into satellites. They're doing hypersonics. They're doing cruise missiles. They're doing a wide variety of those type of activities that defense is needing right now. And then you have GA Intel, which some of you may have known them formerly as CCRI. They're into big data, fusion, common operating pictures. You look at those, and then we have additional companies that are part of the General Atomics technology portfolio, and that includes uranium mines. It also includes, if the weather has been kind of bad, if they actually had de-iced your plane, there's a very good chance that was General Atomics. So the point I'm making is, while we are usually associated with just unmanned aircraft, the portfolio is actually enormous. And the fact that we have an owner who gives us the freedom to explore and pours a lot of money right back into it allows us to be as flexible as we can. And from a disruption standpoint, same thing. It's not a competition thing that we're looking at. For us, it's the drive to deliver what it is we said we could deliver.
Very, very, very impressive. I think, as you can see, every company here has amazing capabilities and very exciting. And let's jump into the questions, get a little deeper here, and let's this group of people are not shy about speaking their minds, and let's make some disruption and some news. So I organized the discussion around 3 main topics today, and we are going to cover each one of them, and I will open it to, in general, whoever wants to take the questions, and we can follow up 1 or 2 because we are going to stay on schedule here. But some of the questions I have, you already answered some of you in the introduction piece, and what companies can do, what they are doing today. So those 3 topics are themes. Geopolitical disruption is the first disruption that we are all dealing with, very interesting times. And then you have the acquisition reforms on top of that, just came in, and very different this time than I've ever seen it in my entire career, because a lot of other things that line up, the leadership and what have you. And the third and the last area I want to talk about is technological disruption, specifically focusing on AI and autonomy, mostly, and all those things coming together, and threats are totally different. The budgets went way up, and the world became a lot more dangerous place than I've ever seen it before. So we are dealing with anything from ongoing war in Iran, just a few weeks old, and we had recently Maduro extradition operation only a couple months ago. Ukraine war is going on, and on top of this, China is running some very scary tests, from hypersonics to space-based bombardment systems, and so that's not going away. So now we have we pivoted from counterterrorism to A2AD. Now we are back to CT, anything in between. So entire department going all on front. So given that environment, and in terms of, so the question is about, what your companies are contributing in today's wars that are going on from the disruptive perspective. To give you an example, like my company, SNC, we are quick reaction capability based, open architectures, being privately held. We make quick investment decisions, longer term thinking, and that brings the contribution and disruption to today's problems. And I can give a lot of examples, but I'd like you to give some specific examples on how we are contributing today's wars, ongoing conflicts. So start with you, Eric.
Kratos is contributing in many ways. most of which I can't discuss in here. However, we have several hundred employees, several hundred in Israel. I believe we're the largest merchant supplier of microwave electronics outside of the United States. Our customers are Israeli Aerospace Industries, Rafael, Elbit, and several others. And our content is on virtually, if not every, Israeli interceptor, radar, drone, communication system, and space system. So we are deeply embedded with our Israeli brothers, and that's probably the primary area I can discuss in this forum, Fatih. Yep.
Amazing. I mean, this is, you don't hear a lot of that anyhow. When, you know, when you hear Kratos, you hear other news blips. But I think every company here is the same way. There's perceptions and the stuff that we do really, when I go to Pentagon, I hear from the leadership, you guys are different. You're actually delivering, you have the heritage. I mean, everybody here have their own ways.
Well, most of the guys here, we're substance, we're not form.
Yeah.
You know, we don't put out the PowerPoints and the podcast bullshit. We do it.
That's true. I mean, that pedigree is very important.
Right.
And customers know that, by the way. It's all about mission focus and customer focus. And,
Yeah.
and that's really a good representation of what we do here in this panel.
You know, we were fortunate enough at Leidos to dedicate 2024 to be our year of deep strategic thinking, to really plot a path for where we thought Leidos could grow differentially in service to our customers. And we started that year by having a proprietary outlook of the future, a hypothesis of what the future would hold, and then bringing it back. So we started by saying, what does the world look like in 2030? And what does that mean we should be by 2028 to serve that world? The interesting thing about that study we did in 2024 and the world we're in today in 2026 is two parts. First, it predicted this world perfectly, except it anticipated it 3 years from now.
I see.
So the pace, the acceleration, the need for speed. I mean, I think we heard it throughout the McAleese conference from all your speakers. You know, I'm a big Formula One fan now, so push is something you hear a lot from the pit crews, and I hear that from this administration. So while we have 5 growth pillars and a series of growth engines that are all relevant to what this nation needs, many of them are very relevant to the fight today. They're being called on to be aggressively pursued and advanced for the warfight effort today. And you know, we look forward to continuing to be a part of the solution with the Department of War as they think about framework agreements and bringing more capacity online faster. We're very excited about that also. So the need for speed and the agility that everybody on this panel exhibits, whether you're privately held or publicly traded, we're all that agile, those companies that haven't lost that understanding of being closer to the tip of the spear. And I think that's a big benefit for us.
And there's also constant renewal, I think, of the, like, you're a disruptor to your own company. You came in, you're disrupting. So that culture is really what is common across the board in this level of companies, because we have a barriers to entry to the mid-tier level to go to prime level, right? Everybody talks about barriers to entry. Startups come in outside to go through the valley of death, but there are different barriers, and so we have to reinvent ourselves every day and to really make sure that we are focusing on the warfighter, delivering what they need, and time is now. I mean, it's very interesting times. And Wahid can speak the most, because like you said, I remember years ago, drones were not even like a topic. You guys were flying things, doing things the first time differently, and you're still reinventing yourself and disrupting within the company as well as outside the company.
Yeah, we're sort of very fortunate because you know our history, as you know, as a company, obviously, because SNC has a very similar background as AV going back 20, 30 years ago.
I know your founder. It tells you how dated I am. So
yeah, we're not going to talk about that
credit,
topic right now. And so, but we're fortunate because, I mean, the conflicts you just described, our stuff is like the poster child, right? We have over 12 different products, not individual units, but 12 different platforms that are used in Ukraine. People hear a lot about Switchblade. Yes, there's a lot of Switchblades there, but there's over 1,500 Pumas operating in Ukraine as their primary air ISR asset, We've got, so there's a lot of counter UAS, et cetera. So we're very fortunate there. The conflict in the southern border about the war on drugs, you saw the news recently, our counter UAS system, the direct energy, is the first one that is actually operating. And it's according, the media talks about different things, but the reality is that our systems are performing according to our customers' satisfaction. It's got very high availability. It's designed primarily to focus on group 1, 2, and 3. And technically, it's disrupting ourselves because we make RF counter UAS systems called Titan series, which is also used in the conflicts in Ukraine and other places. But the holy grail, in my view, for counter UAS is really direct energy. I think, 10 plus years from now, we're going to have a lot more of that all over the world. And then, of course, you mentioned Iran. I just read an article last week that UAE had published that said they had 1,400 drones fired at them in 1 week. Iran fired 1,400 drones from Iran to UAE alone. And what are they targeting is like their refineries, oil fields, all their basically entire economy. Those countries are highly, highly dependent on oil, right? Oil industry. And so when you make disruptions like that, you're going to literally cause an enormous amount of problems for these places. So we're fortunate because we have systems that could be very relevant to those conflicts. So we've placed our bets in the right places, like you described, long term, looking at the outer years as to how fast what would the world look like, what would conflicts look like. And we had some very basic fundamental thesis on where we're investing. Unmanned systems are going to be a bigger chunk of the fight. And we're not saying it's going to take over the whole world, no. Manned systems will be there, but a higher percentage of the assets and platforms would be most likely unmanned. Autonomy and AI will be a bigger part of that. Communications between them. Yeah. Distributed architecture at the edge of the battlefield, where the central command and control is actually less emphasized. It's a very, very real fundamental thesis that we've had, and we still do. Because I learned that 10 years ago from actually a general that used to fly F-16s, and he was, deployed in, at that time, Sarajevo. This is a 20-year-old story, actually, a 15-year-old story. And he said how he would get his orders the night before from Air Force, from the space satellites, and he would come in the morning with his wife, have coffee, breakfast in Italy somewhere, and he would take off, and he would say, I'll see you tonight at dinner, and he would go do a mission out of Italy, and he would come back for dinner. And his message to me was, 60, 70% of the time I'd go there and my target wasn't available because things changed overnight. And so I would spend $1 million flying and come back, and he says, like, your Switchblade could change that. And so I'm like, shit, we got to spend money on this thing. So things like that is basically what we have invested in. And same thing with counter UAS, same thing with direct energy, same thing, laser communications, I think is going to be massive. Every satellite that we have in space is connected through RF. If you can't talk to a satellite, it's not useful. It doesn't do anything unless it can talk to the ground. And so that we know what happens to RF systems. You saw Ukraine war, the conflicts in Israel, et cetera. And so we said, there's got to be a paradigm shift that everything's going to go on laser. Laser communication is much more higher bandwidth, much more resilient, and that's what we invested in. And so now we've just won a contract for about $500 million with the Space Force. So fundamentally for us is, I want to emphasize a point that I think it's really important here. A lot of players in this industry, especially the Silicon Valley startups, talk about, we got to dismantle Lockheed or Northrop. That's crap in my view. That's very, very disruptive. It's very destructive, I think you said the word, not constructive. If Lockheed fails, God bless, I hope they don't, our military is going to fail. We need those companies to also survive and succeed and thrive. But I think there's a room for other players to also come in and to supplement, in my view. This is my personal view. And you can't put all of your eggs in 5 companies or 6 companies, and you have to diversify a little bit. And so there's plenty of need for our military. Conflicts in the world are getting worse, not better. I agree. Number one. Number two is that a lot of the companies that I meet with that are startups, they may have a good whiz-bang technology of some sort, but it's way early in the concept phase. To get that to shift to a full production eventually, especially in the military, that you have one customer and it takes 5 years for them to buy something, No offense, that's how long sometimes it takes, or a couple of years at least. It's a very, very difficult, economic problem. And so companies like us can actually help them in terms of complementing and supplementing their capabilities. They may have a whiz-bang technology, but we could probably help them produce it or certify it or get it to production or get it to the warfighters. So I don't think this is a zero-sum game where somebody has to fail for us to be successful. I believe that we all need to figure out a way to help our military and our country because our industrial base needs an enormous amount of help. We all know in rocket motors, satellite systems, border security, et cetera, munitions, all of the above.
Wow. So you covered a lot, and I agree with everything that you just said. I think one of the lessons that I'm hearing from this is that all of the companies up here you see are providing hardware technology into the fight, which is then educating us to learn to continue to evolve. And so that's one of the keys. The other part, I think, is the partnership model, right? So if it is the small companies that we're working, we have equipment in Ukraine right now through a partnership with Milrem, right? We're investing in an Estonian company because they have innovative technology and are delivering to the fight. That allows then us to learn and get better. Through the artillery partnership we have in Poland, with PGZ, which is the Polish state-owned defense company delivering artillery. But then that comes back, and we have a K9 user club. So everybody that is using K9 artillery then takes lessons back. And if it's the Australians, actually the Americans are joining that group, we take those lessons learned from what's going on in Ukraine back, and that helps us develop technology, find what the next partnerships are. Tommy, your comment about thinking about strategy, when I think back to where we were thinking strategy a year or two ago, some of what has happened now, I think, reinforces that. I mean, we saw the political shifts and said companies or nations are going to want to have sovereign defense capability to meet their own needs because there's going to be uncertainty around shifting political alliances. So I think we read that part. What I think we probably didn't read well enough now and we're adjusting to is with active conflict in so many different parts of the world and magazine depth so low, we now believe that you firmly need a global supply chain. So from a Hanwha perspective, we are thinking about how we have factory in Korea that looks very similar to a factory in Australia that looks very similar to a factory in Poland and to one in Arkansas, the United States, and how those factories can then modulate so that if the requirement is this munition one day, but another munition the next day, how can you take that factory to provide that capability? And if it's needed in the United States right now, then we can deliver it. If it's needed in theater in the Indo-Pacific, how can we deliver that same pre-qualified capability to the warfighter in that spectrum? So
I think that's
probably
going to be
one.
important for our, you're also bringing our allies into the fight too, so their capability, because we are not going to do any fights by ourselves, so we need the allies, and your investments and presence across the countries and friendly countries are going to be very critical. So, Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I think most people just need to look at the publicly released videos that were put out by CENTCOM to tell you where we play in this. The reality is there's at least 70 of the aircraft we've manufactured in the air at any given time around the world. And we support all operations no matter where they're at, and those operations can be humanitarian as well. So the ability for us, again, goes back to what I said of our scorecard of what did we deliver, what did we get to everybody that's out there. When you look at the takeaway I get from what you see in modern warfare today, from the Ukraine to the Middle East to even the operations that were conducted in Venezuela, there are certain things that surface up. These are laboratories for what eventually could be the next war. And what you see is the advent of mass coming back in. You see autonomy. You see attritable systems. You also see things like iterating, going faster, adjusting to what you're seeing in the battle space. Great examples of, everything changes in that time frame because of the way things were structured. Today, that environment is not like that. It's very quick. We in industry obviously need to look at those lessons, identify what they are, and then learn from them and adjust as much as we can to where things are moving. Because in all honesty, having served 28 years in the Air Force, I was relying on industry to come up with the things we needed to fight the next war. And so if we on industry are not looking at that that exclusively and saying, how do we really refine what's going on? The strategic foresight that the companies here talk about with what that world's going to look like, that's on us to help, our militaries, whether they're international or U.S., have the capabilities they need to execute the mission sets that they're going to be given. Part of that also, to get on a soapbox here that I always do is industry needs to be treated as a no-kidding warfighting domain. We don't talk about it in that sense. It's most of the time on the government side, it's a push of, hey, we need you guys to go faster. We need you guys to use your own money. We need you to go do all this. It's great. You change the mindset by saying, you know what, this is actually a warfighting domain. We need manufacturing. Because the fact is, the way you win is not just by creating the latest proof of concept or new things. It's about scale. It's about delivering capability out into the hands to be able to be used. So some of the things that on both sides that we need to look at is industry needs to identify and be the ones in front helping them to identify the type of capabilities they're really going to need, and then vice versa, if on the military side or the government side really considers manufacturing and industry as a warfighting domain, it's a totally different mindset of how you approach what you're going to do.
Well, that's a great feedback. And in the interest of time, we have two other topics. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and maybe each one of you, whoever wants to pick it up instead of going around the table here. One is the Golden Dome. That's another major change that's taking place. And do you see, how do you see a disruption can play in the Golden Dome? We all heard General Goodline today. He doesn't want to develop anything. He wants to connect the dots and focus on command and control. And do you see any room there for disruption? That's the first question. One of you can take it. The second is the COCOMs. How do you think the COCOMs are being heard? Their demand signals come from COCOMs going to these integrated solutions that they're interested in. How do you view that COCOM interface? So Golden Dome, COCOM. So who wants to take the Golden Dome question?
I'll take the Golden Dome because if you don't mind. It's a Golden Dome, very simple. I believe in it. We play a smaller role in the outer layer, and there's an inner layer. The inner layer, we've partnered with your company, actually with you, and we're working very aggressively to deliver a solution. I think we can provide a very compelling solution. We've already done it so far. I'm building at risk $50+ million worth of product as part of the Golden Dome architecture, which we presented, and we're partnering with SNC to actually do that all at risk. There's no contract yet, zero contract. And we're building the product, building the capability, and we met General Goodline, and he loves it so far, and we're going to go forward with that. But I believe that's going to be a very capable system for the Golden Dome.
On Golden Dome, from a space sensing standpoint, from a force protection standpoint, counter-UAS standpoint, anti-cruise missile standpoint, Leidos is all over that, notwithstanding the integrated system and the command and control that binds it all together. I think the eagerness, though, is that, and it comes back to what you said, Wahid, there's a certain race toward what I like to call the cool kids, that they've got the answers for this stuff. And kind of like what you were saying, Eric, we understand this problem better than most people can possibly understand it. And so we're eager, I think everybody on the stage is eager to partner with General Goodline and the Department of War to actually get done with some of the aspirations of Golden Dome.
But again, we talk about disruption, and nobody here got a 7-year contract demand signal yet. So there's a lot of complaints about primes not moving fast and being maybe complacent to an extent. So I think there's more disruption that can take place at the mid-tier level, whether it's ongoing wars or Golden Dome. It seems like sometimes we are still going business as usual. So that leads into the second topic in the acquisition reforms. Do you see changes? I mean, there's an amazing, first of all, I'm very impressed. I never seen in my entire career this kind of leadership focus want to change the system, fix the system. I heard Secretary Hegseth personally saying not only he wants to reform the system, but he's declaring a war in his own department, saying bureaucracy. I want to take the walls down, and I want to change the way we do things. So my question is, do you see the changes coming down yet? And what are the areas that you actually see the results? Or like I said, on the 7-year orders, you see some of things that are still not changing, despite, top ones that the frozen middle is frozen middle, warfighter needs it desperately. So what do you see actually happening from the perspective of your personal experience, say, in Kratos, starting with you, Eric?
Yeah, Kratos is 100% seeing across our entire company virtually everything the Secretary said in his November 7th arsenal of freedom speech. Paraphrasing what the Secretary said, he said, we're out of time. No more science projects. Bring me what you have now. If it's 85% of the quote-unquote someday maybe requirement, bring it to me and I'm going to buy it. And I can tell you from our perspective, the department is executing on what the Secretary said across our space business, our drone business, our engine business, our hypersonic business. That's what's driving the company right now.
So you see the results coming down.
The department is absolutely executing. Okay. We've all done this a long time. I haven't seen this since Reagan. Yeah. Right, Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree, Eric. We're seeing renewed energy and excitement and initiative and entrepreneurialism on the part of the Department of War. Things we can't announce yet, but a lot of momentum building and a lot of opportunity for us to be part of the fight.
It's very encouraging. Wahid, what do you see?
We should skip because of time. Let's have others talk. Okay.
Yeah, I would just echo the sentiment. I've been in this industry in defense for a long time. I've not seen this level of sort of urgency and constructive disruption to the acquisition cycle. Some of it is early stages, and policy will take time to work through, and we heard today about reorganization of PA&E. But I can just tell you from conversations and culture, it is shaking things up. And when you hear your customer say, as we did today, bring me big ideas about how we can operate differently, about how we can change the system, and they mean it. So we went to the Navy to tell, we do some commercial shipbuilding in Philadelphia right now. And we explained to the Navy how those contracts worked compared to how traditional NAVSEA contracts worked. And when they asked us why we delivered on time and on schedule, we said because you don't change the specs every 10 minutes and there's not this constant iteration with the design and you lock in the spec. So we recommended to the Navy to use what we call a vessel construction manager construct, where you actually have a thin prime that manages it and you don't change the contract throughout and drive costs and schedule. And the Navy came back and is doing that. So they are now Navy delivering VCM contracts. So we're seeing the behavior change in response to feedback from industry, which I think is a really inspiring thing from us. And then the last concept, as a company, Korean company becoming an American company, to hear leadership say we want industry on warfighting really resonates with our workforce. We have a Korean workforce, we have an American workforce. Many of them are former service members. To your point on, this needs to be seen as part of the fight, is really resonating with us. So just from a workforce sort of motivation and a standpoint, it's a very healthy environment as well.
So Mike, a different question for you. We all heard about speed and scalability being very important. And your company have demonstrated you can move quickly, you can scale up fast. Do you see the actual reforms coming down saying, can you produce this many? Because there are companies saying, I had the facility, I can build anything and everything, but they haven't started yet. And you had the facility you've been building, you sometimes slow down actually. Yeah. Now, do you see the acquisition reform coming down and speeding up and scaling up, or is there still a transition taking place?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because it's one that internally we've been talking about it, and I've been highlighting a few things. So we're leaving the era of the Last Supper era, right, to now a defense reformation that's underway. because it's not just about the acquisition and procurement and manufacturing. Its requirements are being sort of, redone, how we're going to do that. So we're in this area right now where everything is changing for us, and the reality is that how much of it sticks is going to be one thing. But getting to the point of you can say a lot and go fast, but there's still a little bit of misalignment. Okay, I had the unfortunate or fortunate way you want to look at it. My last assignment in the Air Force, I oversaw all the C2 ISR portfolio, the budget for all of that. So I had to build the POM. Had to understand how the budget worked, had to, what was going to get cut, what was going to be added. That's done 2 years out still. And so if you want to go quick, you run into this, people want to call it the valley of death or whatever, but you run into this time frame where it's not aligned, where industry is like, we're ready to go as fast as you want, but if the money's not there to go, you either have to spend it yourself, as we have, or you sit there and wait, and maybe you get to it. And then if there's a CR or there's who knows what before the money even gets there, that's a long time that could be there where you have a workforce that maybe isn't doing anything, but the skill sets atrophy a bit as well. You still have to attack that learning curve again. So the approach that we've taken to kind of get at some of that is we'll spend our own money and we'll go build, right? For CCA, that's what we're doing. We're building. The contract will come, but we're going to go ahead and build because we don't want to lose the workforce. We want the skill set and our mindset of when the money comes, Air Force is going to be getting the aircraft right away. But that misalignment isn't all there. So if you're going to do all this reformation and all these changes, you got to look at it holistically. How the process of the budget's built is part of that. Requirements could take 5 years. You got a budget that's 2 years out, and then you have your champion, who's got to help push it within the building, is rotating every 2 to 3 years. It's a moving target that you're facing. And so trying to align that, I think some of the efforts are there. A PAE, right? Portfolio Acquisition Executive, now allowing the ability to move money within its portfolio. Those assignments are going to be longer than a 2-year assignment that most of them have. Things are moving in that direction. I just want to see what actually sticks.
That's great feedback. The last question, before we switch to the last topic of technology disruption, is about new entrants. So what do you all think about the department trying to, we are trying to build the ecosystem, build the industrial base back up again, have enough competition across the board. Most importantly, level field competition. So do you think that department can relax the requirements a little more to allow more startups, venture-backed funds, the companies coming into the play? And what's your view about these number of startups that started the past 5 years or so? And how do you see them on the competitive spectrum, if you will? And most importantly, how do you compete with these venture-backed companies for resources and programs where they don't have to make profits like we all need to do it here? So how do you see this? Again, we need newcomers coming in at the same time. We need a level playing field so that, including, by the way, primes, not just the mid-tiers, everybody can have a fair play. Do you see any, do we need to do more, or how do you view, what's your view of this new environment that wasn't around 5 years ago? I mean, it just started. Eric, do you want to, or anybody wants to jump first?
Let me make a comment on this one, actually, because it's a very good example of it. So the fundamental problem is actually less ours, the industry players, us. I agree with you that we have a challenge. We have companies that we run and have investors and shareholders that get to produce profit. But the bigger risk is actually for our military. So let's say there's 3 products. I'm going to use an example that we're not playing in. I think 2 of the panelists are here. The CCA, right? We've got Kratos who's got a product, and you guys are competing. And there's also another company that's a VC-backed that doesn't care about the profits. And you could promise the world on that one, but if they fail, we're going to fail on a massive, massive initiative for the country, where these 2 have a proven track record of being able to make them and produce them and deliver them. So where do you place your risk? And this is not a 1-year thing. It's a 10-plus year dilemma. And so I actually think that our military has to ask that question of themselves way more than we ask ourselves. We have to compete, no question, but it's kind of like a little bit of a, shell game in my view. Eventually you have to make a profit. Those investors would like you to make a profit. And so what is the risk probability of placing a bet with Kratos or with GA, or both, hopefully, versus someone else that has no credentials, have never built an airplane before, has never done anything like that. So that's the dilemma that I think that the bigger question that the military has to ask and the department has to ask themselves. There's lots of, select salespeople in this world, but we have a track record of, A, we won't morally and ethically do it because it's wrong, and two, it's because we've got a longevity. We're going to be around for 5 years, 10 years. We've been around for 50 years. These companies have been around for decades. And so we can't get into a game of liar's poker and a Ponzi scheme and then not deliver for our warfighter, besides the fact that it's morally and ethically and financially and legally wrong to do. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
And I agree. We have a benefit of staying power and a track record
Absolutely.
of success that we can draw on. At the same time, I am empathetic and supportive of the Department of War's passion to get more players in the game. We do need more players in the game, and hey, these people are patriots. If you back away from some of it, they're patriots. They see a need, they see an opportunity, and they're passionate about trying to help America have the strongest fighting force on the face of the earth, which is something all of us share. The good news is we're seeing the Department of War treat us with an equal deck. And so in opportunities where we've been able to go in and talk about the capabilities Leidos has and the opportunity to satisfy needs, we've been put on the level playing field with them. And so I'm not pessimistic about how this is all going to pay out for them.
I mean, your comment about staying power is valid, but at the same time, I hear a lot of complaints that somebody comes in, doubles, triples their employee's salary. My question was, how do you compete for resources, right? Because we have resources, limited number of people, and you won't have the staying power if you try to match that. So how do you deal with that? How do you counter that? Or you just hunker down and get through the day until...
Well, I think Secretary Duffy tried to diminish the stick in his comments, right? I think the way to keep that from being a problem is to perform. And so I'm focused at Leidos at delivering on our commitments and delivering on our promises to our customers. And to the degree that there is a naughty list and that comes to pass, stay off of it.
Nothing like delivering, executing, but you still need the resources to execute too. So it's going to be an interesting time. I think competition is good. The best is going to come ahead as long as we have the fair competition, right? So the last topic we have about...
If I could comment
sure.
on this one. So very quickly, obviously there's a generational recapitalization of weapon systems in the industrial base happening. We're all familiar, it was mentioned in the Last Supper, we had 55 primes, now we have 5.5. We just had $1 trillion national security budget, it's going to be somewhere between $1 trillion and 1.5. There's a supply-demand imbalance, we've got to rebuild, we've got to deter. And the venture guys, obviously, they're in this to make money. They see this. That's why they're funding these companies, because they want to fill that void. That's what's happening here. You know, all of us, we've talked, we all want them to succeed for national security purposes. It's the right thing for the country. But they're all not going to succeed because we all see actually what's going on the inside. We know what's real. We know what's baloney. We know. So we're going to do what we're doing, but we need some of these companies to succeed for our country's sake. The industrial base is in trouble, and we need some of these new guys to make it. with successful, viable, relevant products.
Excellent comment.
If I could you made the same comment earlier, but I think there's actually a unique role for companies like ours that do have history of producing for the military to help some of these startups be successful, right? That's at least as we've been thinking about it, where we see that there may be some new technology or new space that we don't inherently have ourselves, but we see goodness for the customer. In our engagement with the customer, we hear desire. So with that was what led us to USV partnership, UUV partnership, UAV partnership for our customers. So obviously you didn't need any help, but some of the smaller guys certainly did, right? And I think we have experience with the customer, we have experience producing, we know what's baloney and what's not baloney. So where we can find these, I think it's a unique opportunity for us to help the customer meet what is clearly an ambition for a broader industrial base.
Yeah. No, that's actually a good segue into my last topic here. We have about 7 minutes left here in terms of technological disruption, because that new technologies, AI, autonomy, enabling some of the newcomers come in. I mean, in some respects, barriers to entry, some new technologies are lower than try to build an existing traditional, say, weapon system, right? So what are your thoughts in terms of, I mean, let's start with AI, and there are multiple aspects of it, right? We heard, I think it was Emil Michael talked about AI operational side, intelligence side, and organizational IT kind of things, internal systems, process the department is trying to bring in. Like in my company, we are going all in. I mean, everything pushing AI so hard. So what is your experience, your new products and capabilities, and how do you see the AI? And I'm kind of using AI and autonomy side by side. They're different, but just take your pick what do you want to comment from your adoption perspective and improving our products, because everything is moving fast, going to more autonomy, and the world is changing.
Go ahead.
AI is everywhere already. AI enables us to serve more veterans for benefits exams than anybody else. AI enables us to have a force ship go to Australia and back autonomously. AI is what enables us to be the beating heart of many systems for the federal government. So AI is here to stay. Of course, it's accelerating. You'll just have to listen to Jensen and NVIDIA's numbers to understand just how much of a logarithmic scale it's on. So it will envelop more, but it's not new. It's something that we've been exploiting for years and will continue to exploit.
Yeah. So I'll just make a few quick points on this. Number one, for us, AI and autonomy has two distinct fundamental applications. One is internal. How do we become better with AI and how become more competitive? And I truly believe that companies who won't adopt AI, not adapt to it, but also adopt AI internally, they can become competitively non-competitive, essentially. So I have an initiative, for example, this fiscal year, that every business process owner, basically people managers, must figure out a way to take one process that they own, map it out, and apply some level of AI on it. And contracts can do it, proposals can do it, manufacturing can do it, operations can do it, supply chain can do it, purchasers can do it. It goes across the whole company, right? Sure. I can do it too in some part of my business, my work. So that's one. The other side is all on our products. I mean, we're a platform company, and it's a huge, we've been investing in that for a decade. I just read something recently that I think 70% or 65%, don't quote the exact number, over 60% of the software that's written these days is written by software AI. Now, there's a lot of hype in that. I know our team, like we have our own AV GPT because we can't use public for development. Software engineering, which is the largest population of our engineering force, they actually develop a lot of their software with AI, algorithms, models that we already have, and it's helping us significantly. I mean, so that's a huge productivity gain if you apply it properly. The last point I want to make is that despite all the beautiful things that comes out of AI, there's a lot of hype on it too. I get a call at least once or twice a week on somebody trying to sell me an AI product, of some sort, and I believe, just like any other industry, there's going to be a hype curve that eventually is going to come down to, oh crap, some of this is really all not really real. There's a lot of reality, don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to throw the baby with the bathwater, but there's tremendous amount of hype in this space too. You put AI in your company name and all of a sudden your valuation triples somehow.
But there are real results that you're experiencing, right? I mean, I see like development time going from months to days in some cases. So I think that smaller the companies are, there's seem to be an advantage to adopting AI faster than a larger ones, which takes them a lot longer. So that is an advantage for disruption in a way. If we can adapt it sooner,
absolutely.
apply it internally and externally.
Yeah, we got like 4,000 employees, and about 2,000 people a week uses our AV GPT.
Yeah.
That by itself means that if it wasn't good, they won't use it. So half the company keeps using it. To your point, it actually helps them improve productivity.
Okay, one last question before we close out here, because like I said, this is St. Patrick's Day around the corner. I don't have any greens. I think we missed out the memo last night.
We're all
guess,
losers.
But it was a great day all day today. So last question is, do you have any predictions very quickly? I'll go around in terms of technology future, say 3 to 5 years from now. If you look back, what are the technical areas that you think is gonna be evolving more that's not here today that you're excited about? Any guesses?
The application of hypersonic systems for multiple applications that aren't in the public domain today, I think is an area that is the appreciation for that in the next 5 years.
Makes sense. I think that's on the category of, like I said earlier, at the space side of it too. Space is, as you heard our chairman on the last Iranian attack, that space and cyber were where the first shots were fired.
Exactly.
You hear about World War III, if there was one, space and cyber will be one. And that hypersonics is whether from space or from air or any, I think that's the new threat that evolving very, very rapidly. That's
That's what I was referring to.
And we're certainly animated about hypersonics also in partnership with many on the stage. But the other thing you said there, Fatih, is cyber. So quantum resilient cyber defenses and quantum-enabled offensive cyber. Right. That's the key.
I agree with Tom on that one.
Just a couple of comments from my side. I do want to come back. I didn't mention on the AI side. We've gone all in on AI, but I think it's really interesting in our sector because it tends to be a very highly regulated sector, and I think we're used to seeing slightly slower adoption for some of these technologies in ours. Right, we're all in on AI. We've got a CIO. We're full adoption across every function, just like you. But it's interesting to see as you deal with like some of the security systems, GCC High. How do you do it on, does it work on the government cloud? Does it work with CMMC requirements and all that? So we're sort of pushing the envelope there, but I think for companies like ours, we need to embrace AI all in an industry that has traditionally been heavily regulated in all of these security systems and CMMC guidance. How do we come through that as an industry? I think is one from a good point perspective. As far as technologies, I agree with that was just said, hypersonics and others. To me, think about, we're going to a high-low mix. We are saying that we need reindustrialization in the United States. Our partners and allies are saying that they need reindustrialization in Europe and Asia and the Middle East. To me, there's a very interesting question about the technology around just building at scale and adaptability in building at scale. And how do we think about building mass at scale and then adapting that as requirements change so quickly. So to me, as I think about technology and challenges for the future, it's one worth us thinking through.
Okay, Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, so quantum certainly stands out for me. The ability to use that in the sensing realm or communications or encryption or in the cyber realm, those are going to be true game-changing efforts when they come to fruition, and they're not going to be that far off. And then I'll throw a wild card in there, because I sometimes think differently. Humans are going to be different. They're going to evolve with all this new technology, and you think about what we're talking about with AI and how People are using it at companies. We're able to be more efficient. We're able to do things. Humans are going to be smarter in that aspect. And I think that the ability to have generations that are growing up with new technology that is rapidly advancing is going to have a different person, 5, 10, 15 years from now. So I would say the human factor is another one that's sort of the wild card in that.
Well, great way to end our discussion here. So fellow disruptors, thank you very much for this great discussion, and please join me in thanking our panelists for sharing their perspective, as well as thanking Jim here organizing this.